Iya.
Dulu lah.
Halo, selamat pagi Bapak Ibu semua. Alhamdulillah. Terima kasih atas kehadirannya semua.
Assalamualaikum Pak Dekan, Prof. Agung.
Selamat pagi Prof. Agung, good morning.
Selamat pagi Prof. Agung,
Ya.
good morning Prof. Sehat selalu Prof.
Amin.
Senang bisa ketemu lagi sama Pak Dekan.
Alhamdulillah.
Pagi Prof. Agung.
Pagi Prof.
Aman, sehat.
Pangestune alhamdulillah. Si Prof. Ambar.
Coba, share.
Ini Inggris.
Ya, enable edit dulu biar nanti bisa terus di full screen.
Pak Rektor nanti ngomong Pak Prof. Ambar. Oke. Ya.
Bisa ya? Oke, dimatiin lagi aja
Oh,
karena
ada kayak gini ya?
Bisa pakai.
Enggak kan? Oh, enggak apa-apa ya.
Ada sih. Bawa.
Kalau ada
ini.
higienis, bukan berarti bumi.
Oke. Linknya, link. Oh, sorry. Ya.
Alhamdulillah, terkait dengan penanganan kesehatan, kami semua bekerja sama dari seluruh stakeholder yang ada di Kota Makassar, sampai kepada tingkat RT dan RW. Di situ kita memulainya bagaimana semua lapisan masyarakat itu bergerak. Dan alhamdulillah, sekarang RO-nya kita tinggal 1,9. Artinya, satu orang dapat menularkan 2 orang.
During COVID-19, Makassar has been testing new technology to analyze the spread of the virus to support emergency planning. The Future Cities Lab developed a tool to show the spread of the virus in Makassar. Data collected from mobile emergency units were plotted on a digital map to identify pandemic hotspots. Pandemic hotspots coincide with high population density. The pandemic developed fast in areas with slum and low access to clean water.
We use this technology, at least to gather data, educate people, do a campaign and so on. We really need this technology because we cannot really interact physically with others. I think at the city level, we need to have a good comprehensive smart city plan.
The city of Makassar aims to become a smart and digital city. Through the years, ADB has worked with the city of Makassar on projects related to slum alleviation and the improvement of wastewater management. Through the ASEAN Australia Smart Cities Trust Fund, we, together with the Australian government, are able to support cities throughout Southeast Asia, improving their service delivery, planning, financing, using digital and smart technologies. Activities of the Trust Fund, they focus on how cities can better engage the citizens' private sector and how to improve inclusion and accountability.
Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second Undip-Adb International Webinar 2020. It's been a while since our first webinar on July 2020. So this webinar is organized by Universitas Diponegoro, Indonesia, in collaboration with Asian Development Bank. My name is Desi Arianti, and on behalf of the organizing committee, we are very delighted to have all of you here at this event today that will discuss about the fast-tracking the SDGs at a time of crisis. So I would like to welcome Vice Rector for Research and Innovation of Universitas Diponegoro, Professor Ambarianto. Thank you so much for joining us today, Prof. And Prof. Ambar is here on behalf of our Rector, Prof. Yos Yohan Utama. I also would like to welcome Vice President for Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development, Asian Development Bank, Dr. Bambang Susantono. Good morning, Pak Bambang. I think he is live from Manila. And also to all the speakers, Ms. Smita Nakuda, MSc, Senior Result Management Specialist of Asian Development Bank, Dr. Bernadia Chandradewi, Secretary General, United Cities and Local Government, Asia Pacific, UCLG aspect, and then Dr. Amalia Widyasanti, the Chairman of Indonesia's SDG National Secretariat, and also Dr. Ruku Setiadi. He's a researcher here at the SDG Center of Universitas Diponegoro. I also would like to welcome Professor M. Agung Wibowo, Dean of Faculty of Engineering. Good morning, Prof. Agung. Thank you for your coming.
Yeah, good morning.
Of course, all the participants today, next please. All the participants today, so we have 3,600 participants today from across the countries, start from Aceh to Papua, and also we have participants from 21 countries around the world. So thank you so much for your participations. Before we jump to the main event, please kindly see the program agenda. Next. Program agenda for today. Yeah, so after these introductions, there will be opening remarks from Vice Rectors, Professor Ambarianto, followed by keynote presentations by Dr. Bambang Susantono. The panel session will be led by Prof. Agung Wibowo, and the speakers started from the first speakers, Ms. Smita Nakuda. She will present the SDGs across Asia and the Pacific, progress and actions for accelerating transformations. That will be followed by Dr. Amalia, who will present the Indonesia's challenge, key strategic policies, and priority agenda towards 2020. After that, Dr. Bernadia will present related to the innovative solutions to implement SDGs in Asia Pacific through local governments amid the COVID-19. And the last but not least, Dr. Ruku Setiadi from Universitas Diponegoro will present the implementations of SDGs, a transformative perspective of subnational. Those will be followed by the Q&A sessions and also the closing remarks. And before we jump into the main event, please let me read the exonerations clause for this Undip-Adb International Webinar 2020, that the committee is freed from all legal responsibilities for all legal consequences that occur for the virtual service provided, and participants are deemed to know and agree to personal responsibility for any consequences arising from the choice of virtual service provided by the committee. So this event is recorded and broadcasted live through our official Undip YouTube account from the link below. And also all the participants today will get a complimentary bundles that consists of e-certificate and exclusive early access to ADB's new ebook, Navigating COVID-19 in Asia and the Pacific, that will be sent 1 week after the event. The participants also required to fill out the form that will be transferred into the live chat, so that you can fill the form and also add the screenshots during the webinar to get those bundles. And after this, we will have the presentations or the opening speech from Professor Ambarianto. Professor Ambarianto will be sharing us some opening speech.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, everyone. On behalf of Universitas Diponegoro, I would like to welcome the Vice President of Asia Development Bank, Dr. Bambang Susantono, all the speakers in the last year, Dr. Smita Nahkoda, Dr. Bernadia Chandra Dewi, Amalia Vidya Santi, PhD, and also Dr. Luko Setiadi, and the participants to this international webinar SDG series of Universitas Diponegoro in collaboration with Asia Development Bank. Universitas Diponegoro has committed to take the role in the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, which are an urgent call for action by all countries, developed and developing, in a global partnership. As part of this commitment, Undip has established the SDG Center, which serves as a focal point to redefine, sharpen, and continuously increase the university effort and commitment to environmental sustainability and development. This center brings together the multidisciplinary intellectual capacity within the university as a valuable asset that can play a strategic role in driving the achievement of SDG implementation in Indonesia by 2030. The SDG Center of Universitas Diponegoro carry missions, and one of them is expanding networks and partnership with affiliated counterparts and stakeholders to open up space for dialogue to increase awareness in achieving the SDGs target. I think this year is an introspection time for all of us. COVID-19 has transformed the way we live our life, the way we socialize, and the way we work, and accelerated the uptake of technology by force in ways that may help create opportunities to accelerate progress on the SDGs. We will be 10 billion by 2050. Referring to that number, it can be said that our world in finance, people, and nature-wise has limited resources in order to fulfilling an adequate need to all the people. So as a society, we must optimize the use and preserve its sustainability. Small resource could be beneficial for a group of people with some amount of impact. But having this small resource that could bring tremendous impact to not only a group of people, but community beyond that, that will be a great achievement in optimizing the use of those limited resources. The question will be how to maximize the impact of those small resources. So here I would like to highlight the role of intellectual partnerships to accelerate global SDGs target achievement. Collaboration across sectors has appeared as one of the keywords for the international development in the 21st century, and partnership has grown to become as an essential paradigm in sustainable development. The fundamental core of good partnerships is their ability to bring together diverse resources in ways that can together achieve more impact, greater sustainability, increase value to all. It's part of the society such as universities, communities, private sector, government, NGOs, and others are having crucial role as key development actors, and the collaboration and cooperation among them will create synergy to accelerate the SDG target achievement. Undip as well as universities around the world can be part of this partnership system and maximize their role in building a concept, researching, compiling, and analyzing the challenge. Till date, partnerships are still not mainstream as an approach, and there is an insufficient enabling system that can systematically develop partnership as the skills that's required to deliver the SDGs. There is less systematic rule on demonstrating partnership that can generate significant added value to deliver greater impact and deliver net value to all partners and beyond. In the way, this webinar will bring more insight on the interconnection between institutions that can foster the SDGs target achievement to a better world for all of us. I hope the knowledge of transfer and discussion in this webinar will give us a glimpse of perspective on how the future education in sustainable city will look like and how we are going to achieve that. At last, I hope that this webinar will be beneficial for all of the participants, the speakers, Universitas Diponegoro, as well as ASEAN Development Bank. So on behalf of all participants and the permit of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, Undip-Adb International Webinar 2020, Fast Tracking the SDGs at the Time of Crisis, Wednesday, 2nd of September 2020, is officially open. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Prof. Ambar, for the opening speech. And actually, we do have some slight technical difficulties in here before. So maybe I can present the CV for Prof. Ambar, because previously we need to send this. So Prof. Ambar is a Vice Rector for Research and Innovations. So he is graduated from the Universitas Diponegoro and also University of South Wales for his master's degree, and getting his PhD in University of Sydney, Australia. He is one of the national coordinator of UE Green Metric for Indonesia. He also a researcher at the Center of Coastal Rehabilitation and Disaster Mitigation Studies, focusing on marine endangered species for reef and mangrove rehabilitations, conservation, and biodiversity. He has won several research grants, including PEER, Partnership for Enhanced Engagement in Research, for 3 years. He published almost 100 peer-reviewed papers and sits on numbers of editorial boards of international journals. He has a close academic and research collaborations with several universities around the world. And he has been working with the coastal communities along the north coast of Java Islands, as well as related government agencies and NGO. Next, we will have the keynote presentations from Dr. Bambang Susantono. So Dr. Bambang Susantono, Insinyur Bambang Susantono, MCP, MSCE, PhD. He is the Vice President for Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development of Asian Development Bank. He graduated from the Civil Engineering Bachelor from Bandung Institute of Technology, Indonesia. He has 2 master's degrees, Transportation Engineering, and also City and Regional Planning from the University of California, Berkeley, USA. He also received his PhD at the same university. Prior to this, he is the acting minister and vice minister of transportation of Indonesia, and also deputy minister for infrastructures and regional developments at the Office of Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs. He also a member of the board for airline, port, telecommunications, and media companies. He also received several accolades, including Bintang Mahaputra Utama, Satya Lencana Pembangunan, Satya Lencana Wirakarya, Rekor Muri, Sustainable Leadership Award, Ganasa Widya Jasa Adi Utama, and Top 100 FinTech for SDGs Influencer 2019. He chairs several research institutes and taught in university. He is also actively doing research, published several books, and write articles in the subject of infrastructures, transportations, urban and regional planning, sustainable developments, and also climate change. To Dr. Bambang Susantono, the screen is yours.
Thank you for generous introduction, Desi. Vice Rector, Professor Ambarianto, Dean, Professor Agung Wibowo, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to join all of you today in this webinar and speak on the subject of the fast-tracking SDGs and driving transformation in Asia and the Pacific. There have been many unknowns as our region grapple with the COVID-19 pandemic and its many effects. The process of easing lockdowns has met many challenges, and questions remain on how the virus will evolve and how it will affect our societies. But as we adjust to the reality of this new normal, one thing is clear: a return to business as usual is unimaginable in the Asia and Pacific region, a region that was already off track to meet the SDGs even before it was afflicted by the pandemic. The Asia and Pacific countries are at risk of further losing the momentum on specific SDGs. For example, gender equality, as envisioned in SDG 5, has long been a major challenge in our regions, holding us back from realizing the full potential of our people. Women's economic empowerment has lagged behind that of men, with lower participations in the labor force. 3 times as many young women have not been in education or training compared to young men. And now, COVID-19 has added more obstacles to gender equity as women's unpaid care duties increase under the lockdowns. There is also strong indications that women are now more at risk of exposure to gender-based violence in their homes. Our young people are also paying a heavy price with their education and training disrupted as learning facilities have closed. Extensive efforts have been made to provide e-learning solutions in most countries, but the pandemic has worsened existing inequalities in education. These inequalities have been compounded by digital divides and uneven access to information technology. Environmental sustainability, which cuts across many aspects of Agenda 2030, is also another huge issue for our regions. As travel and industry have slowed, there have been some temporary improvements in air quality in some of our region's largest cities. But these are only momentary breaks for our ecosystem, which have suffered continuous pressure from human activities. If the countries will return to business as usual to recoup the economic losses, it will push us back on the path of catastrophic climate change. Before the pandemic, the financing gap for developing countries to achieve the SDGs was estimated at 2.5 to 3 trillion US dollar per year. And the figures will no doubt be higher once the full effects of the pandemic become clearer. Also, in the wake of the pandemic-induced economic contractions, every country will be faced with an even greater challenge of raising these funds. Financing for development has tended to rely largely on domestic and private sector sources in ADB's developing member countries. Going forward, such domestic resource mobilization will even be more critical. Especially today, well-designed and administered tax systems are much needed to promote inclusion, encourage good governance, stimulate investment and job creations, promote social justice, and advance an equal society. Today, more than ever, developing countries in our regions must expand their tax base to increase the tax yield. Tax yields in many countries have been characterized by high volatility, or in other words, large variability and fluctuations from year to year. But on average, they have consistently been less than half of those across OECD countries. In fact, many countries in developing Asia fail to generate threshold tax yields at or above 15% of gross domestic product, the GDP, a level that is now widely regarded as a minimum required for sustainable development. Another critical element for achieving the SDGs is the role of local institutions. In the Asia and Pacific regions, the concept of SDG localization is highly relevant, particularly in tackling the challenges of rapid urbanizations, growing inequalities, and the impact of climate change and disasters. The Sustainable Development Solution Network, led by Jeffrey Sachs, estimates that approximately 2/3 of the 169 SDG operational targets involve subnational governments. In one instance, expenditure assignments in health and education are devolved to them. As an indication of how critical their roles are, about half of the voluntary national reviews, or VNRs, of countries in Asia and the Pacific involve local or subnational governments in the consultation processes. Also, about 1/3 of the countries in the regions are engaging such governments in their national SDG coordination mechanisms and follow-up processes. We can say that there is a clear trend of heightened localizations, although there is a significant variations from country to country in the exact role of the local government, often reflecting the extent of political and fiscal decentralization in place. Indonesia stands out in its effort to involve local stakeholders. Several districts have already shown their commitment to the implementations of the SDGs. The country approach has emphasized the integration of defined stakeholder groups and encouraged actions by diverse groups at national and subnational levels. I'm looking forward to hearing more about the challenges and realities of localizing the SDGs in Indonesia during today's sessions. Recognizing the importance of localizing the SDGs, ADB is launching this week our first e-learning course on this very topic. This 2-month-long interactive course of 6 modules will have a diverse group of resource persons and participants from across ADB developing member countries, including Indonesia, as well as staff from ADB and development partner. ADB Long-Term Strategy 2030 states that ADB operations will be designed to help countries meet the SDGs and the goals of the Paris Agreement on climate actions. On this slide, you can see how ADB operations have a large footprint in meeting SDGs, particularly in infrastructure-related goals. According to this mapping, you can see that 29% of our 2019 investment are contributing to SDG 9 on resilient infrastructure, 18% to SDG 11 on sustainable cities, including urban services, 17% to SDG 7 on affordable and clean energy for all, and so forth. ADB's focus on the SDG is even greater in cross-cutting thematic goals, with 62% linked to climate change. Other thematic goals are also prominent in our projects, such as gender equality and reducing inequality and eradicating poverty. ADB's effort to align our operations with the SDG start with our country partnership strategy as the first step. In formulating the country partnership strategy for each country, we are working with the governments and other stakeholders to reflect their national SDG implementation priorities. For Indonesia, the new country partnership strategy is planned to be adopted this year, and its preparation has involved collaboration with a range of national stakeholders to develop a synthesis of SDG implementation progress. We have carefully linked all of our programming priorities to the SDGs and have supported institutional arrangement for SDG implementation, as well as Indonesia groundbreaking SDG roadmap. This roadmap shows the government medium-term expenditure concerning SDG targets and indicators, and it also synchronized planning with the budget cycle. Our shared objective of Agenda 2030 have never been more relevant than today. As economies reopen to bounce forward from the effect of the pandemic, From the earliest stages of the outbreak, ADB has provided support for the emergency purchase of personal protective and medical equipment and supplies. In April, we announced a comprehensive $20 billion package. Indonesia was one of the first countries to access $1.5 billion from the Quick Disbursing COVID-19 Response option. We call it the CPRO, designed to provide critical budget support to help countries bear the fiscal, health, and social protection challenges. I must emphasize that our responses, including the CPRO, have been carefully screened to ensure they target the poor and the vulnerable, with a special emphasis on women and children. ADB has also provided grant assistance to Indonesia Ministry of Health for COVID-19 medical supplies and equipment to ensure frontline workers are better protected. In social protections, we have assisted the Ministry of Social Affairs to ensure rapid scale-up of social assistance programs. In social protections, we have assisted the Ministry of Social Affairs to ensure rapid scale-up of existing social assistance program and disbursement of emergency cash and food assistance. ADB commits to working with Indonesia also to help ensure that COVID-19 recovery program support low carbon and climate resilient development. We are supporting SDG Indonesia 1, a platform to help de-risk green projects and provide innovative financing solutions to catalyze further the green investment. We will need new policy mindsets and new ways of doing business. These include, among others, inclusive and accountable governance systems, adaptive institutions with resilience to future shocks, universal social protection and health insurance, and stronger digital infrastructure. And let us not forget, all recovery activities should be driven by low carbon, green, inclusive, and sustainable development principle. So let me conclude by once again stressing that the SDGs have never been more relevant at this point of time. We must persist in finding ways to keep vital SDG work back on track, and everyone should take part in the work so that we can build back better and together toward achieving the SDGs. I thank you for your time and patience and look forward to have a good discussion. Thank you, and back to you, Desi.
Thank you, Dr. Bambang, for your presentations. The next agenda is the panel sessions, but before that, please let me introduce our moderator for the panel sessions today, Professor Insinyur M. Agung Wibowo, MM, MSc, PhD. He's a Dean of Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Diponegoro. Prof. Agung has got his bachelor degree in civil engineering in Universitas Diponegoro, and then having his master's degree in management at Universitas Diponegoro and also constructions management at Nottingham University, UK. He also received his PhD in the constructions management, Nottingham University, UK at 2004. He experienced as a project management in-house training for representative employees of Bank Indonesia Regions 7, and then work on the socializations of OHS for constructions worker and also constructions for earthquake resistance house in Bay District's Kudus Regency, and also socializations of Indonesia National Standard. He also involved in the project durian tree planting socializations for the local economic improvement and environmental conservations in Grobogan, Central Java. He also works on the planning for clean water systems in Giri Kusumo Islamic Boarding School. So without further ado, I handed this event to you, Prof. Agung.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mbak Desi. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning. The Honorable host, Prof. Ambar, Vice Rector of Diponegoro University. The Honorable host as well is Insinyur Bambang Susantono as a President for Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development ADB. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Muhammad Agung Wibowo. It's such a good pleasure for me to be here as a moderator for this seminar, the collaboration between Undip and ADB, second international seminar 2020. I'm pleased to welcome all of the participants who joined this seminar. And this seminar is conducted by a collaboration between Diponegoro University and Asia Development Bank, ADB. It will mainly discuss on the topics about fast-tracking the SDGs at the time of the crisis. It is such a good topic to be discussed this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to briefly introduce the speaker. They are Ms. Smita Nakoda is a senior result management specialist in the Results Management and Aid Effectiveness Division of the Strategy and Policy Department of ADB. The division serves as ADB as a focal point on the Sustainable Development Goals, where she leads this area of work prior to joining ADB. Ms. Smita Nakoda is a senior research fellow at the Overseas Development Institute, or ODI, in London, the UK, where she leads the team working on climate change and the finance. The second speaker is Ms. Amalia Adingar Widyasanti, as a senior advisor to the Minister for Economy and Financing at the Minister of National Development Planning, Bappenas, Republic of Indonesia. She started her career in the minister since 1999 at the Directorate of Industry, Trade and Tourism. She was assigned as a Deputy Director for Trade in 2006 and appointed as a Director for Trade, Investment and International Economic Cooperation from November 2011 until 2016. She was then assigned as a Director of Macroeconomic Planning, Statistic Analysis in July 2016 until February 2018. The next speaker is Dr. Bernadia Irawati Chandradewi. Dr. Bernadia is the first woman Secretary General of the UCLG's regional section. She has been working in urban development and related fields for more than 15 years. She began her career at Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA, and afterward CityNet in Yokohama. Dr. Bernadia has also been a visiting professor at several universities in Japan and speaking at various international events. In 2015, she was appointed as a member of Advisory Group of Gender Issue, or AGGI, of UN Habitat. She was selected as one of the prominent women whose work makes impact in Asia Pacific in 2018 by Convener Asia. The next speaker is Dr. Ruku Setiaji. Dr. Ruku Setiaji is a senior lecturer in the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Diponegoro University. He is a research on the topic of SDG Center of the university. He has background in urban planning Undip, hold a master degree in environmental management from Flinders University, Australia, and he received his PhD in urban environmental policy from Griffith University, Australia. He is interested on the intellectual space between urbanization and government in various contemporary urban topics, such as climate change and green economy. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the seminars, for each speaker, it has 15 minutes for this presentation, and there will be a question and answer at the end of the seminar. For those who are going to ask, you can just drop for the question on the chat column. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Ms. Smita Nakoda, with the title of SDGs Across Asia and the Pacific, Progress and Action for Accelerating Transformation. Time is yours, Ms. Smita.
Thank you very much, Professor Rebowo. I hope everyone can hear me, and thanks a lot, Desi, for helping me manage the slides for this presentation at this very timely seminar. So as noted, I coordinate the work on ADB's corporate response to the Sustainable Development Goals. And as part of this, ADB has a partnership with SCAP, the United Nations Regional Commission for Asia Pacific, and the United Nations Development Program on an SDG partnership. And every year we produce a report providing a regional perspective on prospects for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And the report that we launched in May of this year is called Fast Tracking the SDGs, Driving Asia-Pacific Transformations. And I thought to share some of the insights from this particular report because it presented an empirical analysis of the progress that different countries had been making on attaining the SDGs prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, with a view to drawing out good practices that we think are highly relevant in the context of efforts to grapple with this unprecedented crisis of COVID-19. So if we could move to the next slide, Desi. As VP Susantono stressed in his opening remarks, the Asia-Pacific region was off track to achieve the SDGs in aggregate even before the pandemic hit. And of course, the pandemic makes a challenging situation even more challenging. Now, there's been many efforts to look at opportunities for acceleration and entry points for making faster progress globally and within the region on the SDGs. And in 2019, the declaration of the Global SDG Summit identified 6 transformative entry points, which bring together diverse aspects of the SDGs into collective areas, 6 of them, which can be used to accelerate progress towards the SDGs. And what we did in this report was use largely SDG indicators related to these 6 entry points to take stock of progress that had been made related to these areas, including shifting towards sustainable and just economies, securing the global environmental commons, building sustainable food systems and healthy nutrition patterns, promoting sustainable urban and peri-urban development, strengthening human well-being and capacity is something acutely important in this new context, and of course, achieving energy decarbonization and universal access to energy. And what we sought to do was look at progress in terms of these entry points for acceleration with reference to the SDG indicators. And as you could see from the last slide, when you looked at those entry points, there was a lot of evidence of progress being made, but a lot of evidence that we were still off track and had room to go in order to realize the full potential of some of these entry points and grapple with integrated dimensions of those entry points. So the report analyzed progress in this regard and sought to answer 3 critical questions. How does each country's speed of progress and level of achievement compare with regional averages? And on that basis, it sought to identify countries that were either fast risers or sprinters. In other words, they were countries that had managed, for whatever reason, to go a little bit faster than others with respect to making progress in each of these 6 entry point areas. And we sought to look at relationships between these entry points when we reflected on attainment in this regard as well, because of course, one's attainment related to an area such as human capital and well-being may be in discord with attainments related to global environmental commons, for example. So we sought to look at these relationships and also to reflect on what could be learned by those countries that had been able to beat the odds, as it were, and go a little bit faster than others. Next slide, please. And I won't go into the country by country detail on this because it would be overwhelming. But I would note that we noted that, that the report itself highlighted good practices from a diverse range of countries, including Indonesia, but also China, Fiji, Bangladesh, and Japan, each of them oriented around one of these particular entry points. But I want to point to some of the cross-cutting insights that emerged from the analysis just to foster the discussion that we'll have as part of this seminar. The first main insight that was gained was that income is not in and of itself a silver bullet. And many low-income countries were moving quickly despite being at unfavorable starting positions. Now, that doesn't suggest that they had achieved the goals or the entry point areas in their entirety, merely that even though they had special needs or poor income, they had been able to make discernible progress in some of these critical entry points at a relatively rapid rate. And in all of these transformative areas, there were countries that could have progressed much faster than past performance would have predicted. So this is a way of drawing home empirically the fact that there's nothing determinative about past performance in terms of what we can achieve in the future if efforts are made to apply innovative policy in an integrated manner despite challenging circumstances. I think the other major reflection that we grappled with in this report related to relationships between these different entry points. And of course, there are tensions both between these transformative opportunity areas and within some of these transformative opportunity areas as well, right? So for example, in an area like energy access and decarbonization, you have two elements that pull in slightly divergent directions. And we have a great number of countries in our region that have been able to make very rapid progress on indicators related to access to basic energy services, particularly electricity, yet their pace of uptake of clean renewable energy technologies or decarbonization of economies as a whole has been much less rapid. And this is an ongoing and relentless challenge, and one that will take on new forms and dimensions probably as countries reflect on opportunities to stimulate their economies after the COVID-19 pandemic and look to infrastructure investments in that regard. And here we have a crucial opportunity to really look at ways in which we can emphasize low carbon, climate resilient approaches, which have perhaps been less prevalent in many of the countries that have made more rapid progress on access to energy, for example. And the other interesting thing that we found is that as much as these trade-offs are relevant and significant, they do not seem impossible to manage. And indeed, when you put the results of the quantitative analysis on progress rates that was done through a bit of statistical assessment, it suggests that these trade-offs between entry points were not inherently statistically significant, suggesting again that further, I guess, empirical evidence to support arguments that trade-offs can and should be managed proactively. Of course, easier said than done, but evidence there that there are ways that we can work through to that effect. Finally, I wanted to stress the fact that there are last mile challenges, and often it's easier to achieve the first 3/4 or 5/8 of progress towards targets in a relevant entry point. But after that, reaching the last mile gets ever harder. And this proposes difficult and complex challenges, even for advanced economies that have made substantial progress towards many of these entry points. If we could move to the next slide then. So just to conclude with some of the observations that the report drew around accelerating transformation in this new context in which we all live, where COVID-19 is part of the reality of our present and has certainly had a severe impact on our development efforts over the last few months, with implications that remain to be fully seen and understood. And of course, each of the 6 entry points for transformation explored in this report are affected by COVID-19. But they also potentially hold the keys to recovery from the crisis in various different ways and forms. And the report identified 4 cross-cutting elements that have been found to be key to policy efforts that enabled countries to accelerate or be fast risers with respect to SDG attainment in the past, that probably take on renewed relevance as countries seek to devise policy solutions for attaining the SDGs in our new normal. The first is around setting direction and having a mission orientation around the SDGs. So we've talked many times about the importance then of aligning economic stimulus plans with green, inclusive, and resilient recovery, and opportunities here to work and partner with key stakeholders, including business, communities, universities, of course, and other stakeholders to forge a shared vision for what needs to happen and undertake efforts that allow us to advance and implement those efforts. The second core cross-cutting element of policy in this regard that the report identified was around systematic and systemic alignment for transformation. And I suppose in many ways, the COVID-19 pandemic has driven home what we already knew, that we are only as strong as the weakest and most vulnerable people in our societies, and we need to build systems that serve the needs of all of us, including the most vulnerable. And we therefore need to look even more carefully at opportunities to address systemic barriers with regards to our systems for social protection, healthcare, and education, because gaps and weak practices can cause risk and are really exposed when these systems are brought to a halt by crisis events like the ones that we've been living through over the last few months. The third relates to readying people and institutions to sustain change, emphasizing the importance of investing in institutional resilience and capacity to innovate, including within government, but within all of the critical arms of society that are part and parcel of the response effort. Sorry, we're still on the accelerating slide, Desi. We know here we've had, we've recognized the opportunity for governments to create room and all stakeholders to provide, to innovate, and digital transformation has been a key element of our coping strategies in this regard that we can continue to harness and harvest looking forward. There's opportunities to look again at ways in which we can work better and more closely with local government. And I know many of the speakers later in this panel will speak to that topic in much more specifics. And we also recognize the importance of mindsets and social values as shaping the ways in which our societies will cope with this, and our ability to refocus on these proposed new shared visions that take up the SDGs and associated frameworks for recovery. And the fourth issue that was drawn out by the report was the recognition of the need to manage complexity in policymaking. We're still on the last slide. I'm sorry, I'll let you know when we can skip. Basically, we've driven home how integrated our development pathways and approaches are, and policymaking approaches need to reflect the fact that there are complex interconnections in our systems, as they increasingly are and have been doing. And explore opportunities for open policymaking that takes on diverse information and inputs, and looking at ways in which more technical mechanisms such as forecasting or strategic forecasting can help them anticipate and cope with complex challenges like the ones that the COVID-19 pandemic has posed. So now on to just to note that the report whose main findings I've showcased in my presentation are available on our SDG partnership website. And we do encourage you to have a look at the report. And I'd just like to draw your attention to the fact that there's a range of other tools related to understanding progress on the Sustainable Development Goals that SGAP and UNDP have jointly developed that we'd encourage and welcome you to work with, including a data portal that aims to provide data visualizations and provide information on progress towards SDG official indicators and related indicators. Next slide, please. So let me just again thank the organizers for the invitation to present and stress that ADB through our work program on the SDGs will continue to look at ways in which we can strengthen ADB's focus on helping our DMCs attain the SDGs. And this issue of the implications of the COVID-19 pandemic and crisis for attainment of the SDGs is one that we will make very central to our corporate work program over the next year or so, as you can well imagine, including working in partnership with regional stakeholders, including in Indonesia. And we very much look forward to continuing to engage with you and others as this work progresses. So many thanks again for your time, and back to you, Professor Wibowo.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Nita Nagoda. There is some talking point about the presentations. 6 transformative in 3 points: sustainable economy, global environment, food and nutrition, sustainable urban and peri-urban, well-being and energy. The one that's very impressed for me is the quadrant to illustrate speed of progress and level of achievements so countries can learn each other. To accelerate transformation, the critical point are you have to mobilize partnership, or stakeholder participation, systemic approach to address complex problems, and settle institutional setting governance. Thank you very much, Ms. Mita Nakoda. The next speaker is Ibu Amalia Widyasanti, PhD, Chairman Indonesia SDGs National Secretariat, with the topic of Indonesian challenges, key strategic policy, and priority agendas toward 2030. Time is yours, Ibu Amalia. Ibu Amalia. Halo. Ibu Amalia, are you here? I'm sorry, the participant. Ibu Amalia, halo. Yes, this is for the preparation for Ibu Amalia for joining for us as a next speaker. Halo, Ibu Amalia. Are you here? Okay, because there is some preparation for the Ibu Amalia, so I will jump to the speaker number 3 is Dr. Pirnadia Chandra Dewi as a Secretary General United Cities and Local Government Asia COVID-19. The topic of innovative solutions to implement SDGs in Asia Pacific through local government.
Very good morning. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi. Thank you very much. First of all, thanks to Undip and ADB for inviting me to this very timely webinar. It's really an honor for me to be here. I think we all are very blessed today because we can still meet virtually despite this situation. So in this presentation, I like to focus on the what local governments and local governments associations have been doing during this COVID-19 and how this also relates to SDGs. I'm very pleased when Pak Bambang mentioned 2/3 of 169 targets, this must be operated by subnational governments. I think this is also very much relevant to what we have been doing. And also I'm glad that he also pointed out that 50% of VNRs in Asia Pacific have also included the perceptions of local governments. And this number actually was much smaller a couple of years ago. I think this is also to show good advocacy works of these local governments players in putting the importance of SDGs in the work. Okay, can we move to next slide? Maybe some of you have not heard of the organization I belong. This is the World Organization of Local Governments. We have been connecting more than 250,000 cities and local governments in the world in more than 140 or 50 countries. And ASPAC, Asia Pacific, is the largest regional section of UCLG World. We have more than, we represent almost 4.5 billion people. This is more than half population of the world because there are some fast growing countries that are part of this section, like China, Indonesia, India. So UCLG ASPAC itself is the united voice and advocate of democratic local self-governments that promotes a cooperation between governments and within wider international communities. So our activities include like capacity building, policy research, projects, programs, decentralized cooperation, city-to-city cooperations. And also we use several modalities or methodologies like collaboration, dialogue, consultations, cooperation, and knowledge sharing. So we are recognized by United Nations, and actually we are the one coordinating for the local government's major stakeholders group within the United Nations. So we know this COVID-19 has been giving challenges, have been impacting so many groups of people, regardless their age, their sex, their races. So, and we have been working in the SDGs and 2030 agenda, and this is also widely embraced in the region. We also been through the association have been advocating, also have been cooperating with central governments, particularly to include also the perspective of local governments in the VNR processes. And even some cities, and mostly also in Asia, they also come up with the VLR. This is voluntary local reviews done by several cities, including like Taipei and also Japan, some of the cities, Kitakyushu and Hamamatsu. There are several cities that already come up with that VLRs. I think the Asia Pacific is the home of the 59% of the population, as I mentioned earlier, and local actions plays a critical role in achieving sustainable future. So through this local government association, I mentioned here some of the local government associations that are here in Asia. They also already done some works like disseminating this global agenda, making sure that slogans or UN jargons can be easily understood by local governments, also mobilize their members and having capacity building programs, training for them, and also build alliances with local stakeholders, such as these community groups and private sectors and academia. So in the countries like Japan, South Korea, China, Indonesia, the Philippines, Australia, this is all under our coverage. Local governments, as well as local governments association also already aligning their policies and development plans with the SDGs. And we have released a report on the global outlook, how local governments have been localizing SDGs. That's also include this region, Asia Pacific. So can we move to the next slide here? So I think we are we're also very familiar that this COVID-19 affects mostly people in urban areas. We look at these cities are the epicenter of this COVID-19. And then and compared to the people living in rural areas, we live in cities and the most much more affected because many of people lost a job. They also hardly find food to eat. So this is also very important that even though the COVID-19 is a global pandemic, but the impacts are deeply local. So what we have been doing when this COVID-19 started to affect us, we have this foster knowledge of exchange. We already conducted more than almost 16 website sessions and all kind of topics that relevant to local governments, about data synchronization, about local economic losses, about also the stimulus packages, also about gender. As you know, gender violence has been increasing in number during this pandemic, more than 300% increase in some areas. So, and the second one, what is interesting here, normally in urban areas, the bonds among the peoples are normally not that strong. But through these pandemics, we see a very strong solidarity spirits that have been shown by local governments, they also provided donations to other members like local governments as well as local government association. And we also managed to capture smart practices or innovations of local governments. We have been documenting and promoting these smart practices and innovations, how local governments handling this COVID-19. And there are already more than 500 innovations related to everything of the responses and recovery plans that local governments have been doing. That's also include like 3Ts, test, trace, and treatment that came from also some cities in South Korea that also have been transferred to other cities. So during this period also, we have been working on the advocacy and come up with the policy recommendations. At the global level, we come up with the 10, we call it decalogue, of the perspective of local governments and also wish of local governments that also have been submitted to United Nations. This decalogue include like guaranteeing public services and also financial support policies, because local governments don't want to go back again to the time before the COVID happened. We are quite fortunate in some extents that during this COVID-19, we could see blue sky, in some days in a city, big cities like Jakarta. So we don't want to go back again to have more pollution. So this is already commitment that expressed by leaders of local governments. So we also have fostering opportunities, and we understand that revenues of local governments have been decreasing because of the losses on taxes. Also, local governments gave a kind of incentive for businesses related to this tax reduction. So we try also to find a kind of we have been conducting what we call it matchmaking virtual events, and we already identified which local governments are in need and what kind of resources available for them. So this also include like telemedicine program that also expressed or initiated by a city in China, Guangzhou, and also working on tourism as well. So, and in the next slide, so basically we try to bring different kind of partners in the table and discuss together with local governments as the entry point of responding to COVID, and as well as preparing for recovery plans. So as a knowledge hub, we are quite advancing because we also release this what local governments need to know about the COVID-19. This is actually as a brief guide for them that included also some of the innovations from the cities and local governments in Asia Pacific. I mentioned also web share sessions, and upcoming one. This is also actually what we plan to work also with Bappenas in producing pocket books for legislative and executive decision makers on the impact of COVID-19. Yeah, can we go to another one, please? So this, I mentioned earlier, some of the solidarity in the form of humanism. So you can see here some of the donation came from different cities in China, like Haikou, Xi'an, Yiwu, Guangzhou, Chengzhou, giving their masks and also some of kind of medical facilities to others, like not only in Indonesia but also in Pakistan, in the Philippines. So this is just to show you that despite this pandemic, they really have a kind of strong spirit or a good spirit or positive spirits that we really have to work together much closer. Some cities also provided direct donation or direct contribution to their sister cities, like Seoul has given also support to Jakarta city government. So can we move next? Next slide, please. And I have like more than 500 innovations, but let me just take some of these innovations that have also been transferred to some locations. One in the Philippines, because ADB is based in the Philippines, I thought it's good also to show some of the innovations from the Philippines that came from Makati, Catbalogan, Baguio, Iriga. They started with this e-mobile market that sell goods. This is applied especially to avoid this connection or physical connection among the people. Some of them even have identified a digital platform for traditional market. But this kind of innovation also we see in Indonesia. Several. Can we move to the next slide, please? So some like digital economy. I give you example of Yogyakarta. Yogyakarta already had a plan of digital economy even before COVID happened. But because of COVID, several local governments, including Yogyakarta, are forced to move faster than what they initially planned. So Yogyakarta initially started to have several traditional markets be transformed into or be given a chance to be part of this online platform system. And they also work with unicorns, Indonesian unicorns. And also this similar approach also has applied in Jambi through their Sangkek program, dari Jambi untuk Kanti. And another one that we also work closely related to tourism, because as you know, tourism industry has been very much affected. Almost 90% of tourism drop in most countries. So some local governments already started to reopen their tourism side, focusing more on domestic side, and some government even given incentive, but of course they have to apply this health protocol. So Sawah Lunto, one of the cities here in Indonesia that we support also, we also plan to have a matchmaking program with several other cities. So basically how during this pandemic, virtual tours can be promoted and also can also encourage people to come. So people already see this a lot of virtual tours, and then hopefully, and even some of them think to visit those sites when COVID-19 has gone. So can we? These are some of the practices, and this is all very relevant. So what the strong message I like to convey here, that whatever we do in responding to COVID, in doing recovery plan, all of them are related to SDGs. Not only just SDG Goal 1, but also SDGs Goal 8, Goal 9, Goal 3, Goal 4. So this just example of what Pariaman City, They also make sure that the supply chains is not disturbed. So this is why they are having a program of promoting home garden, fish pond in the household compound, and also ensuring local food availability by regulating agriculture, animal husbandry, and fisheries. And I think you already, if you are Indonesian, you are aware that Indonesian government now is putting quite a big amount of money for food resiliency. And I'm happy that local governments already started doing that and having food resiliency as one of the priorities for them. Another one also establishment of new citywide COVID-19 protocol and make sure that medical services are also available. Also blended learning program for students. Some of cities even provided a free internet system, and in Pariaman, they provided what they call it One Family, One Graduate University support program, and also another program related to school-age students. So next, because I think I only have 1 more minute. Next. So this one actually, what what the Ministry of Home Affairs. This is taken from one of the web share we had with the Ministry of Home Affairs of Indonesia. What is important is that this COVID-19 has been affecting not only 1 or 2 goals. Of course, we understand that Asia Pacific, some of the goals in the regression status, especially related to goal 16, goal 10, goal 12, and goal 11. So what the ministry, this is also has been communicating to local governments that local governments should looking at the short-term priority in attaining SDGs. So some of these targets is written here. Basically, how can we do within this short-term period something that we can accelerate these SDGs, but in the meantime, we also responding to COVID and having a recovery plan. So this has been also shown not only short-term development focus. So some cities have been prioritizing short-term development focus, and some of them also have already some of them medium-term focus. So this is my last slide. I think, and in conclusion, some key takeaways in accelerating these SDGs. We see from our work, but of course, more research need to be done. I think I'm happy that we will be working also. We have been doing some partnership with the SDG Center in Undip. Hopefully, we can also do some research together. How this really, there is a strong relations between COVID and SDGs, because there are already a lot of informations, but we need to put it into research result. One of them, of course, there are innovative and effective efforts by local governments, and local governments are the front liner in fighting this COVID, and even some mayors, there are some mayors have died because of this COVID-19. So this is to show you that global COVID-19 is global pandemic, but you need the local actions in handling that, because we are closer to community. So as the pandemic impact all the SDGs, handling the pandemic effectively can really help accelerate the slow progress of SDGs achievement, and identifying a short and medium term development focus to attain SDGs can be a good start. The second one, as local governments experience significant budget costs to handle the pandemics, we need the integrated approach. So during this session, how local governments can fund their development without using this local revenue or their own budget. we managed to mobilize some of the support by having a sharing with zakat, crowdfunding method, zakat, even SDGs 1 Indonesia that ADB has been also supporting. So building back better, I don't say only building back better, but building back better, building back faster, and building back stronger. So we don't want again to go back to the time before COVID. We want really make sure that there is no domestic violence occurs. There is no mass pollution happen, and we already enjoy the beauty of some of the environmental, gain because of the COVID. So I'm happy to partners with everyone, and I'm also. I think it's good also to collaborate with ADB in the e-learning system. I think this is the time, and because in the new normal, we cannot expect that learning can only be done through face-to-face training or through face-to-face exchange program. So thank you once again, and wish you everyone good health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chandra Dewi. It was very interesting presentation. And some of the key point that Dr. Chandra Dewi mentioned is promoting digital economy, and there is some best practice from Philippines and also some from local government in Indonesia. And the one that also impressed is one good point during the COVID pandemic 19 is the strong solidarity spirit among the people and the society. This is one of a good point that we also exercise during the COVID pandemic 19. Another thing that's very important is the offering from Dr. Chandra Dewi that Undip is ready to do some collaborations for the, because we have a three dharma perguruan tinggi for education, research, and service for the society. So we are ready to do so for this collaboration for the next to be put into action. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Chandra Dewi, for the very, very, very interesting presentation. The next speaker is Ibu Amalia Vidya Santi PhD. She is a chairman Indonesian SDGs National Secretariat. The topic is Indonesian challenges, key strategic policy and priority agendas toward 2030. Time is yours, Ibu Amalia.
Thank you, Professor Agung Wibowo, for the opportunity for Bappenas to share some information in this important event. And good morning, everyone. Hope that everyone stay healthy, and then we better stay at home during this COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to share my screen. Let me check. Hope that you can be able to see my screen.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what I would like to share this morning with you all. That first of all, that COVID-19 cases are still increasing either in the world or in Indonesia. And then in Indonesia itself, the last number that we have for coronavirus cases reaching the number of 177,000 cases. This is by yesterday. And then the latest new cases or daily cases reaching 2,700. And I think this has to be our concerns, not only from the government, but from all of us and from the people of Indonesia. Because based on our analysis in Bappenas, there is a positive correlation between people mobility and the rising of the new cases. It has been proven by our from the statistics that the more mobile people, whether to essential places or non-essential places, and it lead to the increased number of COVID-19 cases in Indonesia. So one of the, I think Bappenas also have the dashboard of COVID-19. It can be accessible to everyone, and then the address of this is covid.bappenas.go.id. So this dashboard is updated daily, and then this dashboard is not showing the new cases or data or statistical data on the daily cases, but it is more on the analysis. What we have in this dashboard is 3 criteria that is stipulated by WHO, where there are 3 important criteria, whether an economy or the country is ready enough or surveillance enough to face the COVID-19 pandemic. And then with that, criteria number 1 is epidemiology criteria. We use indicator RT, where RT is actually the spreading of virus. And then there is like a benchmark from the WHO that when the RT is below 1 for consecutively within 2 weeks, then it is a good one, a good sign that virus can be able to be contained. So this is an indicator whether the virus is contained or not, and RT is quite powerful to see which area and which province is actually having able to contain the virus. We have 34 provinces updated daily, and including the kabupaten and kota data as well. Criteria 2 is a health facility or health system, and then this is including how much is actually the share of ratio hospital bed ratio to the number of people infected by COVID. And then the last one, which is very important as well, the criteria number 3, that representing how surveillance we are. And then this is indicated by number of testing that we have already performed. According to WHO, that in every 1 case, we have to undertake 20 testings. So meaning that the ratio is 20. The higher than 20, the better. So I think this could be one of the, we can use this one, you can access, this is for example, surveillance. In Indonesia, number of, the ratio of testing per 1 case is still low, still far below 20, which is 6.81. The benchmark is 20. But another indicator as well showing that the positivity rate, which is number of cases per in 1% of test is 15. It's actually, it have to be below 5%. So if you look at the curve or the data that we have here, from 34 provinces, then there is only 1 province is actually reaching the benchmark that WHO put, which is above 20, and then that province is only Sumatra Barat, West Sumatra. The rest of the provinces is still below the threshold. So meaning that what can we conclude here? If you would like to be more surveillance in Indonesia, then we recommend everyone here to do and to undertake COVID-19 test, whether in the workplace, or the test can also be done independently by ourselves. So testing is very important, and if we hear the Paul Krugman saying, the famous economist, one of the famous economists in the world, if we would like to open our economy confidently and responsibly, then we have to have a comprehensive national testing plan, meaning that the number of tests that we have to undertake have to be abundant, have to be a lot. All right, and then so based on the condition there, of course, that the COVID-19 pandemic will affect the Indonesian SDGs achievement. As you know, that in Q2, that the economy of Indonesia growing negatively by -5.3%, and it never happens before after that we have experienced the 1998 economic crisis. Even in 2008, while there is a global financial crisis, then Indonesia can still grow, could still grow positively in 2008, even though the other countries was contracted. But now it's different story, because this is a global pandemic and every country experiences the pandemic. Then Indonesia also affected much by this one. Then we are predicting that we are projecting Indonesian economy in 2020 will grow somehow between -1.1% to 0.2% annually. And the poverty rate, of course, will be slightly increasing, and unemployment rate will be also a bit higher than before. And we also projected that international tourists will be lower than before. So this is some of the risks that we are going to experience because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the social pillar, for sure that which is goal one will very much affected because most of informal sectors are highly affected now. About 50% of people are now unemployed or even just stay at home because the production and also the economic activities is getting slower by 50%. So the thing is that because of many unemployment and less less output in the economy, then it affects the level of poverty that we will experience within this year or probably next year. And for food security issues, you know that economic and financial crisis because of COVID-19 pandemic is potential to affect food supply, and the global food supply is relatively not secure, meaning that domestically we have to ensure and strengthen our our food supply chain in our economy. And the thing is that when we are trying to contain the virus, then one of the sectors that cannot be affected is, of course, food transportation and logistics, because food is an essential supply for people to live. Then food sector is the most important one. Then the government is trying very hard to ensure that the food transportation as logistics are not really hampered, even though there is social distancing or PSBB. We call it PSBB. The other one is the effect on economic development pillar, such as goal number 7. Global economy is really trying to contain the virus, and then of course the economic activities will slow down. And as we know that, you know, even the oil prices can be contracted, and somewhere between probably 2 months ago, that the price of oil can be negative, and this also never happened before. And the price of coal is also declining. But the other one is what we can take the opportunity from this pandemic, that there is a room of opportunity for us to develop a renewable energy, because because I think this is a lesson for us that climate change created by fossil fuel that we use intensively, then it can harm our environment, and then can also lead to, we call it zoonosis, where new disease can spread, and COVID-19 is also perceived that this is because of human activities is not really friendly to our environment. So the thing is that it is a good opportunity for us to provide strong policies to target new renewable energy mix to be achieved, so we can reach the target of renewable energy mix that is stated explicitly in Goal 7. Furthermore, Goal 8, Goal 9, and Goal 10, that workforce health is key for economic recovery. So meaning that human capital is the most important one at this pandemic. So meaning that we have to maintain the health security of our people to be able to be the asset for our future economy. Tourism, we know that tourism is hit directly because of people are not really travel a lot, and then it can create the multiplier effect of the negative effect to the other value chain. We know that tax revenue is drastically decreased, and therefore the government is trying to increase the deficit of our state budget, and then it is for this year we have the budget deficit minus 6.34%. What is the effect of environment development pillar? During the pandemic, it is estimated that CO2 emissions have decreased due to the decrease in economic activities and fossil fuel use. I think this is one of the positive side. But the thing is that we also facing another problem during this pandemic, where there is an increase of medical and non-medical waste and usage of single-use plastic and medical equipment, like, for example, the waste of our face mask, for example. That will be additional waste that we throw away to our environment. So we need innovation and a new approach, and how can we mitigate this risk to the environment due to the increased use of the medical equipment. And this is a challenge for all of us. And then we need innovation and technology to solve these issues. The decrease in public transformation use that is projected to continue until the next new normal. And then also there is a decrease in mitigation activity and action of climate change in the effort to reduce CO2 emission. Effect on justice and governance pillar. The application of large-scale social restriction, or we call it PSBB, has impacted to the implementation of law process with restriction of public services facility. So there are 89 hawks issues regarding COVID-19 pandemic, and public services continues with cybersecurity implementation for government institutions. Tax revenue will decrease for sure. And the thing is that, but even though the tax revenue decreased, but the government is still committed to increase our stimulus packages and ensure that stimulus packages can be realized by the end of this year. And what is the strategic policies and priority agendas towards 2030? Of course, that fiscal revenue, fiscal response are already being undertaken by the government of Indonesia through economic recovery program, and then we have already allocated budget about 87.5 trillion rupiah to support health and health system. And then for state-owned enterprises, we also provided budget about 53.5 trillion, and to support social protection and consumption side of the economy, Then we provide a budget about 203.9 because this is actually to maintain the purchasing power of our people. As we know that there are many people are unemployed during this pandemic, and then we have to support their consumption, especially for their basic needs, and we provide this social protection program. We also support MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises, with the amount of budget 244 trillion rupiah. And then this is actually the government intervention for the production side to ensure that our SMEs can really afford the situation of the pandemic by providing interest subsidy and also loan restructuring program, as well as we provide some credit support, subsidy to credit to meaning that the SMEs can have loan with the interest of 0%. So the government will borne the interest, the interest rate, and then the government will pay the interest of the loan, and then the small and medium enterprises can get the loan without interest, 0% interest. Stimulus impact of sectoral output in COVID-19. This is actually one of the study undertaken by LPMUI. For your information, that Bappenas has collaboration with LPMUI, University of Indonesia, on how the impact of COVID-19 to SDGs. So I think if Universitas Diponegoro later on would like to also have collaboration with Bappenas, and then we will be happy to do so, because this is also one area that we have already had a collaboration with the University of Indonesia, where the impact of COVID-19 to SDGs already been undertaken. And then we are planning to launch the book within this month, September. So this is some of the result of the study. And then what the government have planned for 2021, that the government will focus on economic recovery and social reform. There are 4 things to be focused during 2021, because we understand that we are now hoping that the virus can quickly contained. But we are also aware that the number of cases keep increasing day by day. So with that we are trying also to call for actions to everyone in Indonesia, that we really have to contain the virus together. What the government effort that have been done so far will be nothing, and will not be affected much if it is not supported by all people in Indonesia. So a discipline to implement COVID protocol is actually the most factor to affect whether Indonesia can contain the virus. So we have to reduce our mobility. If it is not necessary, please stay at home. If not, and then we will not be able to contain the virus. So there are 4 things for economic recovery and social reform that we will be focused on. Industrial, tourism, and investment sector recovery will be our priority. And then we also have priority to strengthen national health system by reforming the national health system, including strengthening healthy living community movement and health security and resources. We also will reform our social protection system, and then the other one is that to reform the disaster resilience system. As you know that Indonesia is really ready and then already settled down the system for disaster resilience, especially for natural disasters such as earthquake, eruption, or flooding, or tsunami. We are really actually have a strong system to face that kind of natural disaster. But the thing is that we are now understood and realized that we are not really ready yet if we are facing the non-natural disasters such as COVID-19 pandemic, this is actually the disease disaster. So meaning that learning from this COVID-19 pandemic, Indonesia now is trying to prepare reform that we really also need to be ready for disaster resilience, not only for natural disaster, but also for the other non-natural disaster. So that is the focus of our reform that will be undertaken next year. So
I do apologize, Bu Amelia. Time is up.
Okay.
The time is limited. Yes.
There is also 2 slides more, but 1 minute, Pak.
Okay. Yes. Please.
Actually, COVID-19 recovery is showing us and then also realizing us that we have to accelerate the implementation of low carbon development and low carbon economy. And then we understood that the success of 2030 agenda depends not only the government, but it is really depends on the cooperation between the governments, institutions, agency, private sectors, and civil society across different sectors, locations, borders, and levels. So I think this is a good time for us to start strengthening our collaboration among those stakeholders. So with that, we can mitigate the risks of COVID-19 pandemic, and in the long term, we can be able to achieve the 2030 agenda as we wish. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Amelia. It was a very interesting presentations. Some of the talking point from Ibu Amelia is Indonesian challenge and SDGs attainment amid COVID-19 is depend on the 3 pillars: economic, environment, justice, and governance, promoting co-benefit in SDGs implementation. The success of SDGs implementation depend on the strong collaboration and cooperation between the government, universities, private sector, international institutions, and also different sectors. One of very impressed is also the human capital is one of the assets for the future economy. So it means stay health, and to be health during the pandemic COVID, it's very essential. As a Undip, it will be very happy to do the collaboration with the Bapenas, Bu Amelia. We are ready to do so because we have SDG centers in Undip. Yeah. So this is the one of capital for the Undip to do a collaboration with Bapenas. I'm very, very happy to do this collaboration. Thank you very much, Bu Amelia.
Sure, Pak Agung.
Yes, thank you.
We'll be very happy to have collaboration with Undip for SDGs.
Yes, I will put in the MOU and also on the PKS to be action plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you very much, Ibu Amelia. Yes, Alhamdulillah. The next speaker is, the last speaker is Dr. Ruko Setiadi. He is the lecturer in Urban Regional Planning at Diponegoro University with the title is the Implementation of SDGs, a Transformative Perspective of Subnational. Time is yours, Pak Ruko.
Well, thank you so much, Prof. Agung, moderators, and distinguished Professor Ambarianto, Vice Rectors, and all educators from Universitas Diponegoro. Dr. Bambang Susantono, Vice President of ADB, Dr. Bernadia, Dr. Amalia, and Ms. Nakoda, my fellow presenter today. I think it's really a pleasure to participating with all of you in this webinar, and thank you so much for having me here. And thankful to all attendees who are patient for waiting to the end of these presentations. And I would like to share my screens. Yes, hopefully you can see now. And I think all the basic and many important points are already mentioned by previous speakers. So I hope in this presentation, I will be able to add a little bit to these conversations. And my presentation is about the implementations of SDGs from a subnational perspective. Yes. How to move to the next? Okay, yeah. Well, To begin with, I would like to argue that the implementation of SDGs doesn't matter at the subnational level, because it is the real location and it is the battleground of the implementation of SDGs. And secondly, I would like to say here, if we talk about SDGs implementations, basically we need to put attention on SDG 16 on good governance and SDG 17 on partnership. They are keys to turning the potential of synergy of the goals, SDG number 1 to number 15 into reality. And the achievement of the SDG implementation, I think, depends on the effective governance arrangements. And a recent study shows that among different aspects of governance, the most important for the implementation of SDGs is democratic institutions and organizations and participations. Now, the foundation that I would like to say here in the beginning of my slide is that the third point that important is that SDG targets are integrated and compatible with one another. However, to achieve a particular target may be constrained by other targets. I will give you example. For example, open defecation, for example, which is in the target goal 6.2, will not be achieved if the government, for example, failed to shelter most of vulnerable groups, which is the target of 11.1. So coordinated policy interventions are important. In addition to intellectual and financial resources, policy coherence and reflectivity is also imperative. I will give you real examples, the absence of policy coherence that affected local government or subnational level. Maybe you know about waste to energy. I think promoting waste to energy is not only good for goal number 7, which is provide modern energy for all, but also goal number 3 on ensuring healthy life through reduction of waste, and goal 13 on climate change because it strengthens mitigation actions. However, it creates burden for city government, fiscal or financial at the city government, because through tipping fee payment to the investor that built the infrastructure, which is then may reduce allocation for other basic services. Why? Because there is a regulation from the national government in waste to energy that involve incentive to investor by purchasing the resulted electricity with a higher price to attract investment. I think it's common because it's an economic and logic sense in the economy, but then it competes with the existing recycling initiative, which is the livelihood for those, many of those excluded in the formal urban economy, which then may limit local government achievement to reduce goal number 1, to eradicate poverty, and goal 8.3 that promotes micro and small medium enterprises that most recyclers did. And then the next slide, I would like to highlight 4 observable issues and challenges on SDGs implementation at the subnational level. The first is about lack of capacity to recognize the integration of SDGs, because maybe at the subnational level, the exposure to SDGs remain low and it's very between regions in Indonesia. And also lack a capacity to manage large-scale participation substantially. I think there is a lot of interest at local government to involve in SDG, but how to manage this very large scale of participation is also a problem. And the second problem is problem towards integrations, because of the nature of agency segregation, which is, I think, it's not too strong at local government. Basically, local governments are just worried for not being able to comply with their own tasks, which is then lead them to work in silo, while commitment to continuous iteration is not yet a culture. And the third issue that I can see is about simplification of practice, in which SDGs are heavy on reporting than implementation. And the last issue that I can see is about problem on the ground, especially to get resources available for the implementation. And COVID-19, as mentioned by previous many previous speakers, I think is at another layer of issue. And for this slide, I would like to, despite our despite our issue, I think there are some potential and promising tendencies in the implementation aspect of SDGs. For example, there are involvement of international and transnational network at the city and province. For example, such as Ibu Benadia, which is UCLG aspect, which focuses on overall aspect of SDGs via goals 16 and 17, and many other organizations, international organizations as well in Indonesia, and it's very beneficial for local government. And the second is about, I heard about underway reform at the national level in 4 priority area that already presented by Ibu Amalia from Bappenas. There are 4 priority areas in national security system, health management system, food security, and disaster resilient reformation that I think it would be benefit for local government. And the 4th point that I would like to say that some potential is about the role of private corporation through CSR and philanthropy on SDGs as implementing instrument. Although some studies says that CSR is a very good commitment on the paper, but on the ground they need to be realigned. But I think more of them is more incremental instead of transformative. However, I see some institutions that are very good and leading in SDGs implementation, such as Astra International, that have a very amazing CSS program and very worldwide, national-wide program, and as well as, for example, Tanoto Foundation. It's very good for local government. And the last point that I see is about the establishment of SDG centers at the university. And so far there are 12 centers in Indonesia and in university and some research institution. I think they will be able to help local government and community have a long-term vision to integrate all potential and partnership from different array of organizations to achieve SDGs. Now, I would like to propose two main strategies to foster implementation of SDGs at the subnational level. There are 2 strategies, particularly for Indonesia. The first strategy is improve digital government capacity. I think that is already mentioned as well from Dr. Bambang Susantono and Smita about government digital transformation or digital government capacity to deal with. I would like to call here is about off the ground issues. And another side is we need also strategy to integrated landscape or area managements to deal with the on the ground issue in the implementation of SDGs. Digital government capacity here I define it simply as improvement and enhancement the use of IoT and Internet of Things at local government to perform or execute the task of SDG processes, monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. The use of cloud-based technology, online data sharing, for example, is not yet practiced in many of the SDG secretariats at the local government level, and it's prevent them to work effectively. And where important digital government capacity is important because it also means for effective management of large-scale participation during the SDG process and better recognitions of the integration of SDGs. I think with the use of technology, we can know, because there are many participants, we can know what happened in the next room and the other room, and we can connect one another easily and monitor the progress. And it all allows data sharing as well, which make it easy for reporting purposes, and the government can focus on the implementation on the ground. And the second strategy is integrated landscape area management, which is this term is mostly familiar in a European country, but in China, they use it as a demonstration zones in which a systematic approach is employed to find suitable demonstration zones by overlapping some criteria. And once demonstration zone is selected, coordinated investment and policy intervention are concentrated, and therefore some aspect of SDGs could be simultaneously achieved. However, I think in Indonesia, we can develop our own as well. For example, local government in some may use local knowledge or information instead of using technocratic approach as China did. I would like to give some example that may fit to the idea of integrated area management while supporting some SDG targets simultaneously in the next slide. I will bring you to Bergas district. Bergas district and particularly sub-district Ngempon. It is about 40 kilometers in the south of Semarang. It's a peri-urban settlement surrounded by industrial area. There are many industry over there, more than 20 large industry and other smaller industry, and mainly food processing industries, such as you say Coca-Cola or anything else. But the river, in the sub-district, they have a river. And there's a potential like a river and waterfall, hot spring, prehistoric temple, and there is also community and its culture. In the past, the river was polluted, and then the pollution destroy rice field and irrigation, fish disappear, community then struggle to get the environment back. And then and local government then facilitates this dispute, and that develops a CSR forum with the member is all industry over there, and then advisor or the top advisor is the local government, and the chair of that CSR forum is local community. And then the river get better, less polluted, and then the community put the fish back for participatory based river monitoring, and then take place. However, the community still over there still focuses on the labor-oriented livelihoods, and they are really dependent on industry. And it put them in a vulnerable situation, because in sometimes or somehow in the future there will be changes. For example, if the industry move away or stop to operate, I think they will get devastated situations. And not all of the people over there is absorbed by industrial activities over there. Now, today we have a collaboration, Diponegoro University with the Semarang Regency government and PT Astra International to its CSR. We assist them to have a sustainable livelihood, which is goal number 8 via edu-tourism development, which is also mentioned in the goal, in target goal 8.9, and which emphasize when we use the land and river ecosystem protection as the activity, because there previously it is neglected, that ecosystem, which is goal in 6.6 and goal 15, that socially and ethically motivate surrounding industry for being responsible with their operation. If they operate badly, I think there will be objection from the community, because it is the source of their livelihood and economy now. And then, yes, this is the result that we help them to make a master plan for their area, and then help them to develop business plan for long term. And then this picture is the design of the area that involve of all the community and all of asset over there. And the unique here, because the participation, that the program has not involved land purchasing, renting, or transferring of land ownership. And in contrast, 21 landholders happily contributed the land for the community interest, and their share of benefit, and then would like to organize them in like a cooperative organization. And then we train the local community to run new livelihood in edu-tourism sectors, and local government over there from tourism agency help the community to training in a homestay management. And then we try also to connect tourism market in cities to that neighborhood. And then this weekend, hopefully in 6th of September, the community over there hosts for the first time, first group, 40 tourists that will visit their destination, of course, with the very strict COVID protocol. I think that is some illustration of how we can do as a SDGs center to participate in the implementation of SDGs through such kind of demonstration zones or integrated landscape management. And to end my presentation, I would like to give some point here. I think there are promising initiative and action from a close level of governance actor that support SDG implementation at the subnational level. Although for issue and challenges in the implementation of SDGs at the subnational level remains there. There are many potential strategies to enhance implementation of SDGs at the subnational level. However, improve digital government capacity is an urgent priority to increase the role of local government. And SDG centers may assist local government in the development of digital architecture of SDGs governance. And then the third point is that implementing landscape or area-based approach is another urgent priority. And national and local government may encourage and facilitate the collaboration of local authority, private and SDG center, focusing on the ground implementation. I think that's all 3 points of conclusion of my presentation. I hope I do not take a lot of time. Thank you so much. Apologies for any inconvenience, and the virtual stage, I give it back to the moderator, Professor Agung, please.
Thank you very much, Pak Ruko. It was a very interesting presentations. There are some talking points from Pak Ruko, Setiadi PhD. Explore SDGs implementation at the sub-national level. Observable issue are limited capacity, integration, mobilizing resources, effective implementing the concept and planning to the action. There are potential platform partners to accelerate SDGs implementation, such as international network from UCLG, from ADB, and also I think from Bappenas, and Undip is ready to do so in order to implement the SDGs. And then at least 3 ways forward across level of collaboration of governments across simplification of practice, such as making easy the reporting process, focusing on the ground implementation. There are some best practice in case of Ngempon, Semarang district. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the section of question and answer. I would like to thank for the active participant who give some question. There are maybe almost many questions arise during the discussion since in the morning. But anyway, we conclude to be 2 major questions. The first one is efforts toward SDGs is in all-inclusive program. How could youth or students or younger generation getting involved the whole process? So this is a very good question, and I would like to share this question to the speaker, Bu Mita Nakoda, and also for the Bu Amelia, and also for Bu Chandra Dewi and Pak Ruko. I think for the first opportunity, I give to Bu Miss Nita to answer these questions.
Pak Ruko, can you just clarify both questions or just the first question?
The first question first.
Okay, so I think the question of youth engagement in SDG implementation is a crucial one. And of course, youth have been a critical stakeholder in the development of the SDG framework. There have been a very wide range of youth-driven networks that have been involved in various aspects of SDG implementation as well. And of course, I think universities and learning institutions also play a vital role in this regard in terms of both raising awareness and understanding of the implications of the SDGs for conventional ways in which we've approached sectors and issues that need new approaches if we're actually to deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals. So I suppose those are a few reflections from my side on that. I'm sure others have much more to say.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nida. The second one, I give opportunity to answer the question from Dr. Chandra Dewi.
Thank you very much for the question. It's very interesting. Actually, we did a survey a couple months ago asking the young people, young generation, whether they have been involved in the city planning or city operations. And most of them said there is no kind of platform, there is no kind of, mechanism, but they are really willing to do so. So this is why in responding to that survey that we made, UCLG ASPAC, led by city in Korea, Jeonju, we are setting up the youth committee in which it brings closer between young engagement, young people engagement in the processes. And of course, this is can be done if there is a certain platform set up in the city itself and the local government itself. And some cities already have this kind of platforms that also provide opportunities for them, for young people, not only in terms of working on the research, but also in giving them perspectives and opinions and that. Second, we also have internship program at UCLG ASPAC. So we have been having so many interns from France, from Australia, from elsewhere. They came to our secretariat in Indonesia, in Jakarta. We also have several students from University of Indonesia and also several others. So definitely it's very strong, but I think what there is no much done yet is the openness of local governments towards young people, especially in the processes. So I think this is a good kind of hopefully local governments can come up with the policies, and we are continuing to promote this towards more engagement.
Yes, thank you very much, Ibu Chandra Dewi. The next point of view is from Ibu Amelia from the Bapenas for our government. Please, Ibu Amelia, to answer the first question. Yeah, Ibu Amelia. I think Bu Desi, can you put a screen for the questions? Yeah. Yes, this is the question, Ibu Amalia. Yeah. So, from your point of view, from the Bapenas, maybe you can give some.
Check. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. The first question, Bu Amalia.
The first question is that, thank you for the questions, and then effort towards SDGs is actually inclusive, because as you know that SDGs is no one left behind. Actually Bapenas always try to engage young generation, students and youth to get involved in the process of SDGs. And last year, for example, when we are organizing SDGs annual conference, and on the sideline, we are also organizing the SDGs, we call it SDGs, the number is SDGs annual conference, and also SDGs parties. That SDGs is actually to only invite the young generation, and we would like to introduce SDGs to young generation with a simple but more implementable actions. So we share what is SDGs actually in our daily life. SDGs is not just concept, but SDGs is actually our daily activities. And even in SDGs annual conference, we invited elementary students. Imagine that elementary students, grade 5 and grade 6, they have projects on SDGs. Goal 14, which is marine ecosystem, marine life. And then that two students, which is very much excellent to present about what is actually we have to know about, they present about marine debris. To people in the SDGs annual conference in front of our vice president, with the attendance of 3,000 people. They really present very clearly, and then they said why we have to concern about marine debris, and then what will why it will harm our environment. And then those students teaches teaches the adults in front of the vice presidents, imagine that, and then they really explain very clearly and then fluently, and then they really understand the concept of SDGs and also what we have to do in actions according to their level of the level of age. So I think SDGs by that one, everyone is amazed with the smart explanation from the students, and then by that one, it realizes everyone that SDGs is actually for everyone, including for young generation. And then the second one, that when we are going to the university, and then I also reminded as well the students in the university, why don't you do research on SDGs? Why don't you do a thesis on SDGs? So meaning that SDGs will be a part of the research concerns of the university and also the thesis. And not only that, we also have SDGs ambassador. We have 3 SDGs ambassadors, and by next year, we are going to have an event to have a competition in the university to select the university SDGs ambassador. So be ready in Universitas Diponegoro, Pak. Probably you can start to announce to the students that please be ready to be the SDGs ambassador. We are trying to select and to appoint SDGs ambassador in each university of Indonesia, so they can start to disseminating and engage more students to really understand what SDGs is, and then what is and how SDGs will be a part of our daily activities. And the second question is that regarding to the strategies that must be done to compete with people.
I'm sorry, Bu Amelia, just first question first. So I will go to the Pak Ruku for the first question.
Sorry.
Sorry. But anyway, thank you very much for your offerings. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Student ambassador for the SDGs. This is very interesting opportunity for student in Undip. Thank you, Ibu Amelia.
Ya, Pak.
Yes, Pak Ruku, it's your turn.
Thank you, Professor Wibowo, for the opportunity to answer, and thank you for the question. I think I also already answered some questions in the chat for some others, but I would like to answer the second question about the strategy to deal with the city that is just started for in SDGs process. I think we don't make a competition, I think, from one city to other city, or from one region to other region, because I think it's nothing if achievement in one area, but it is also leave other area or other country in devastated situation. I think it's not good. I think we need to learn from one another. And I think it's a very good initiative that is now maintained by UCLG Aspect, which has regular webinars that inviting city mayors and bupati, and then they will present about the key success and some best practices that will be spread over the nations. I think it's a very good. And then also thank you as well for Ibu Chandra Dewi, Ibu Benadia Chandra Dewi, that make collaboration as well with the SDG Center Universitas Diponegoro. So we have opportunity to help to participate in the development of 3 quick guides for executive decision maker or city mayor, and it's and also for local parliaments to how to achieve SDG amid the pandemics. And I think it's a very great as well opportunity and strategy how we can run together and achieve together SDGs by 2030. And at least we know about that, and then realize that there is a challenge for SDG that we have to address. I think that's my questions, Prof. Agung, for the second. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Ruku, for answering the second question. So I will go to Ms. Mita Nakoda to give your point of view about the second question. What strategies must be done to compete with the people or city government who already successful in SDGs implementation, while many others are just starting? Time is yours.
Thank you, Professor Wibowo. So I think the key word I'd use in this context is learning, perhaps, in that there's a lot to learn from those that have done well or who have innovated or taken initiative in this space. And that was very much at the center of the tripartite report that I presented earlier in this panel, was to try to highlight good practices from various countries that others could learn from and be inspired by. And I think actually, you know, if we were to enter a realm in which there were healthy competition to try to outdo each other when it comes to really innovating for the SDGs, taking on new approaches that bring this framework together, then that would actually be a very positive set of developments to see transpire. And I suppose we all have a role to play in fostering that type of healthy competition. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. It's very good statement. The next, I give chance to Ibu Dr. Chandra Dewi for your point of view for the second question.
Thank you very much, Professor Agung. The question is very interesting actually, because there are already a lot of best practices and some cities in some extent already achieve some of the SDGs. And I think what as part of the competition can be very healthy and can be also useful and motivating the cities and local governments to do much better. So what I call it is a leapfrog. We should not follow the mistakes, and do the same mistakes that others are doing, but learning from others, meaning that if one city takes 30 years to reach that SDGs, maybe we can reach much shorter. This is why I call we can jump and get closer to this attainment. There's the important is having a good leadership. I think the community should have capacity, even young people who really can vote. You should be able to choose a good leader for yourself. And this is why accountable leadership really is crucial in making a big change within society and within the cities and regions. The second one is also open-minded leadership and also institutions, because we really have to grasp all the opportunities that given by this society and environment with ICT, with digitalization. What we do here in UCLG and UCLG ASPAC, we have so many awards or prizes. Like we have a Guangzhou Innovation Awards on innovation that gives cities that come up with innovation. So there is also Peace Award. There is also so many awards. This is also motivating the others. So strategies are very important, and then but engagement of society in the process, I think that's also key. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last point of view from Ibu Amalia from the Bapanas for the second question. Time is yours, Ibu Amalia. Bu Desi, can you, and Ibu Amalia, please unmute the microphone.
Thank you. To unmute it. So for the second question, that's true that there is like different level of understanding between one region to the other region in Indonesia, because as we understand, Indonesia is very wide and consisting of more than 500 districts, and I think this is also a challenge for us. So the thing is that what we are doing so far is actually because among 34 provinces of Indonesia, actually each provinces has to submit the regional action plan or sub-national action plan, and among 34 provinces, there is only 25 provinces already submitted the sub-national action plans. So with that, we are still have homework for the 9 remaining provinces. And for the 9 remaining provinces, we provide some facilitation to support the 9 provinces together with our development partner, such as JICA. Now JICA and Bappenas is facilitating 5 provinces to assist them to prepare the sub-national action plan in provincial level. And also GIZ and Bappenas provide some support as well to strengthen the capacity of some provinces in Indonesia. So another strategy that we are trying to do is working in collaboration with SDG Center. So SDG Center is the right place to provide support and facilitation to the regional government. As you know that in regional government, they are quite often to be rotated because people will not be able to stay for longer term in one place in regional government. So that's for sure. So with that, because people keep changing in the regional government, and meaning that there have to be like an institution who is always ready to provide support to the regional government. So that is SDG Center the right place to support. So we are trying to do the pilot project in collaboration with SDG Center for provide facilitation to the local government. With this JICA, we are trying to do this concept of working in collaboration between the SDG Center and the local government in the preparation of sub-national action plans. And it works successfully. And then I think this could be replicated to the other local government as well to increase their collaboration with SDG Center. And also I suggest the SDG Center can actively approaching the local government to provide supports to them in SDGs.
Yes, thank you very much, Ibu Amalia. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are approaching to the end of these seminars. For the final remarks, first, the pandemic makes a challenging viewpoint to achieve SDGs goals. Financing for the SDGs is an even greater challenge. Improving stakeholder capacity is one of the key points, as it certainly needs to be supported by a good governance setting. Collaboration, partnership among different stakeholders, international institutions, across level government, universities, private sector should be strengthened to cope with the difficult situations. The last one is digital platforms should be further promoted to accelerate economic activities and more effective governments. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank for all the speakers that already presenting and give us a valuable information and knowledge during these seminars. Thank you very much. And we are, Diponegoro University is ready to collaboration with Bappenas, also with UCLG, and also with ADB. And special thanks to Bapak Bambang Susantono as the host together with Undip to do this seminar. Thank you very much, and big applause for us during this seminar. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Pak. Thank you, Pak Agung. Oh, ya.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Amalia. Nanti saya buatkan MOU, Bu Amalia.
Siap, siap, Pak.
Siap.
Makasih semuanya.
Makasih. Thanks to Ibu Desi.
Bu Bernadette.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Agung. Such inspiring and prominent discussions we have here today. Before we closing this event, I would like to invite again our Vice Rector for Research and Innovations, Professor Ambarianto. Maybe to give some closing remark, Prof. Ambar.
Okay, Bu Desi, thank you very much. Dear everyone, especially Pak Bambang Susantono, the Vice President of ADB, to all speakers, Ibu Sminta Nahkoda, Dr. Amalia Widyasanti, Dr. Bernadia Chandradewi, dan Dr. Ruko Setiadi, and of course, moderator Professor Agung Wibowo, and all participants who joined this webinar since this morning. And with all of the questions, we are very sorry that all questions cannot be answered because so many questions. I think we have learned a lot from the presentation of all participants, from all presenters, at least two things that highlight this webinar, which are the importance of collaboration in regard to the not only planning but also implementing program and activities related to the SDG. And secondly, this has become very more urgent in the COVID-19 pandemic right now, which we are all facing. So we have to make this webinar into action as soon as possible. So on behalf of Undip, Universitas Diponegoro, I would like to thanks to everyone, especially ADB for the webinar preparation. And lastly, Undip and ADB International Webinar 2020 is also officially closed. Thank you. Back to Bu Desi. Thank you, Bu Desi.
Thank you, Prof. Ambar. So before closing, really closing this event, the organizing committee would like to say thank you for all the support from the Executive Board of Universitas Diponegoro, from the Vice President of Asian Development Bank, Dr. Bambang Susantono, who actually sent everyone a warm regards and apologized to leave earlier because he has another meeting. And also to the speakers, Ms. Smita, Dr. Bernadia, Dr. Amalia, and also Dr. Rupuh, to the moderator, Professor Agung Wibowo, and all the organizing committee from the ADB and also Undip. Finally, and all the attendees, we would like to say thank you for all of the participations today. And we hope that this webinar will bring an inspiration and the positive impact for all of us. We also hope that the SDGs could be later on more streamlined to the in the university, not only in Indonesia, but also in the around the world, and also not in the university as institutions, but also in other other institutions that can be accelerate the SDG implementations and also the SDG target achievement by 2030. So we look forward of seeing you in the next event, and I hope you all have a good day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank
big
you,
applause.
Samantha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, big applause for everybody.
Thank you.
Terima kasih. Thank you.